All right, so I'm the last one of the day. I usually get long-winded. I'm a storyteller too, but I promised Miss Lisa, wherever she's at in the back, that I wouldn't go over an hour. So, Miss Lisa, this one's for you. So I'm Owen Foster. I've been an educator for almost 10 years now. I'm also a landscape architect. I'm an environmental designer and also an industrial designer. But I think the most rewarding thing that I do is I mentor. And right now, a couple of my friends and we started a new platform for education. We're looking at taking what we think institutions do great. They take the safety nets and keep them there just enough to where students can explore and do things. But it's still theory. But what we're wanting to do is now put it into application. We want to take them around the world, mixing multiple majors, and put them in high-risk and high-reward situations. But for what? Why do we want to do that? It's the discovery of wisdom. Wisdom has a lot of different definitions. Everyone in here would see it a little bit different. And now how am I going to tell you how to discover wisdom? Isn't that on your own? Isn't it up to you to be wise? It is. But there are steps in which you can take, and I press and challenge you to take to get to that point. Now, what does wisdom look like to most people? It's the older generation. You got to have long beards, gray hair, around 90. And you're like, that's a wise lady or a man. Is that true? Is this where I need to be? Why can't I be wise now? Does it take forever to get wisdom? Some of it, yes. But there is a process in which you can gain wisdom, even at earlier ages. So I'm going to go over today, briefly, Miss Lisa, the building blocks for wisdom and where I think we're falling short today. First block is information. You have to have it. You need to know how to collect data. Now, we all know the younger generation, they're the greatest data collectors ever. They can find things that I have no idea how they found it. In 2 seconds, it would take me 2 days. Maybe some of you are that kind of person. We have a flood of information at our fingertips that generations in the past have never had before. This is the way it was old school. You'd go to the library. You would read stories. You would get information from what we called the encyclopedia. Then it started changing. Now everything's here. We've got it in these little devices that can tell us about the world at any given second. But now we've started talking about collaboration. Why would we collaborate with other people? Don't we have all the information in front of us? No. You're only reading information. When I talk about design with students, if you sit at home and design by yourself, you're only limited to what you know. If you sit with 10 other people, you are now expanding yourself 10 times. Because you can bounce ideas, you can borrow ideas, you can be inspired by other people. But this is the hardest part of the information process. How do you document it? How do you write down that information where you can remember it? Where you can regurgitate it? Think about a story from when you were 5, 6 years old. One of your favorite stories, maybe 12, whatever it is. And you're going to tell that story, but it's not going to have all the facts because you don't remember them all. It's just like when you wake up from a dream and you have it and you're like, man, I just can't remember it. It's the same thing with innovation. It's the same thing with thought process. If you don't write it down in whatever form is necessary, you're going to forget some of it. And there's no information that's useless. Maybe I'm sitting there sketching a light, a desk lamp. I'm just sketching them. Well, I'm inspired, so I'm going to sketch about 20. They're going to be weird. They might not even have true lights in them. I don't know what it's going to be. And then I put it up. Who's to say 5 years from now, a company doesn't reach out to me to go, hey, we need some kind of light device. Uh-oh, I just got a reference. I just got information that I thought about 5 years before. So the next building block is experience. Now, I talked in depth about this last night over at ETSU. So I'm going to highlight it a little bit because there's a couple more steps I want to talk about tonight. Experience starts off like this. We're children. No matter if you're in the woods, you're in the house, you're just playing. The greatest gift my parents ever gave me was an imagination. Because they said, take this stick and go play. Man, that stick become a bat, a sword, a gun, something I would hit my brother with. We could have called it a lightsaber. It didn't really matter at that moment. You could dig with it. But that was experience of my own. Then the world opens up. You get a little bit older. I want to go there. Now again, I was lucky growing up. My backyard was 1,700 acres. The bad part about it, I had no neighbors. So it was me and my brother. My mother did not want us inside. We didn't want to go with Dad because that was manual labor. So we went out to play. We just explored. But now we're starting to see that experience trapped here. Now, we've heard a lot of people, and there's been some great information today. And I'm hoping you take every bit of it, and you're starting to distill that information. And we talked about technology today. It is a great tool. I'm not saying take your iPads away from your children. Why? But there are so much more to experience than what's on a screen. Think about when you started going out into the world. How did you document it? You took photos. You had to bring them back, put them in your little albums, and then you could show people. But that was your documenting your brain, what that experience was for you. And those photos allowed you to hear noises that you heard, smell some of the scents in which you had at that moment. Sometimes it's about taste. But now this is it. We're allowing this to be our experience. And somewhat it's killing part of one of the blocks that are necessary for wisdom. Because we can go on YouTube and find any information that we need. If I need to swap a doorknob, if I need to fix a toilet, if I need to work on my engine, I guarantee there's about 10 to 100 how-tos on YouTube. Yes, it works. I still use them too. But it's never allowed me to experience it on my own. Now, we talk about experiences, and I always say, I'm going to prove that I live by what I talk about. My father last year, he's 69 years old, great shape, can still outwork me. Twice the size as I am, I'm the runt of the family. He always wanted to go out west. I haven't taken a vacation in 5 years. I said, Dad, let's take a month off. Oh, son, I take every day off. I'm not really working that much. Okay, great. So I told my boss, I'm taking off July. What? Sorry, I won't be here. We loaded up in my Jeep. We did 12,000 miles in 1 month. He did not drive one single mile. But I showed him every state west of the Mississippi but 2. I showed him the Pacific Ocean that he had never seen before, and we were lost in the Mojave when we were talking about it. I showed him the Mexican and Canadian borders. And because I have a Jeep, we did a lot of it off-road. So the Grand Canyon was one of our targets. And I talked about the Great Wall last night for those who were around me at the presentation last night, but I'm going to talk about the Grand Canyon tonight. How many of y'all know about the Grand Canyon? Everyone, right? How many have seen a photo of the Grand Canyon? How many has been to the Grand Canyon? Oh, quite a few. Okay, for those who haven't, same way as I said about the Great Wall, it's just a canyon to you. Because my father and I ended up in places like this. He got to stand, well, he was more like this. I was more like this. Looking down 3,000 feet. Looking to the right, looking to the left, nothing but this great hole in the earth. And it's absolutely amazing. That's an experience. I can tell you about the crow that lit right next to us. I can tell you the scent of my father's Victory cigar when he lit it up. He can tell me every single second that he was like, son, you're too close. Son, you're too close. Father, I'm an adult now. I don't care. Get back here. But that's one of those experiences I got to share with my father. But it's also called contextual research in our world. Because I put myself right there. I allowed myself to go, whew, that's a long way down. That's what I talk about experience. Now, I also talked about this last night. Please do not fear failure. The same statement I gave last night was, people always, don't let fear define you. No, that's wrong. Failure does define you. Because all of your failures are 100% your own. You're guaranteed to be unique on your failure. It's not negative. That means you tried. That means you're trying to do something different, better, or more clever. Because I hate to tell you, most things have already been created. We just twist them around and try something new with them. And how we do that is we reframe the question. One of the little things I like talking about, if I tell you to draw a refrigerator, what happens? You draw a box. Yours might have an LED screen, coffee maker, whatever it is, inserted into it. It might send you updates on an app. But I guarantee 99% of your refrigerator will look exactly the same. But how about if I tell you to create a device that slows down the decay of dead matter? You're like, oh, what? All it is a refrigerator. So why not allow yourself failure? Why not allow that failure to drive you to find something new? Failure should be our teacher. Because that means you're trying to experience something no one else has ever tried to do before. Or maybe you want to experience it a little bit different. Like I said, we were lost in the Mojave Desert, driving around. My dad's talking about the ocean. I'm sure most people that have been lost in the Mojave Desert is not talking about, hey, let's go see the ocean tomorrow. They're more like, hey, let's get out of here and get some water. So last night, I talked about my father making me pick cotton by hand before I drove the tractor, because that made me respect that piece of equipment. I'm going to tell you another story about a wall. Now, at the end of this story, you might like, man, he's got a terrible father. But it's not true. I owe a lot to my father. I'm 13 years old. Now, most people think I'm a big fella. I'm the smallest of my family. Average male, 6'5", grandfather, 7 foot. Yeah. Luckily, I was the fastest one. My father had a rock business, along with farming about 2,000 acres. He stacked rocks, built rock walls, did all of those things. But he was the only one that was allowed to stack the rocks. He didn't trust anybody else. He had a creative eye, and he said it has to look a certain way. So as a little kid, I got to help him by bringing those boulders because that's all I could lift. And I'm like, Dad, please put that in the wall. Okay, son, it's going to be a support. And he just hit it. Well, I'm 13. He said, son, I'm going to let you do your own rock wall today. Oh, yeah, I am going to be a man. He said, I'm going to back up the dump truck, drop the rocks. I need one 30-foot long, 4 rocks high, level across the top, backfill it, and you're done. I got this. He dumps about 6 tons of rock on the ground. I'm looking at it. I measure out 30 foot, and it's got to be straight. I've got this all lined out. And I'm having to push some of the rocks to it because it's so heavy, so big, but man, I am working. I'm sweaty. I'm nasty. My dad's coming out making sure I got water, and I'm like, I got this. End of the day, I stand back. I'm like, the proudest 13-year-old in the world. Cannot wait for my father to come out. He comes out. Some of y'all know him. Real deep voice. Too many big ones there, too many little ones there. Doesn't work. Tear it down, start all over. First, what? That's a perfect wall. He goes, nope, doesn't work. I said, you've been checking on me all day. Did you not see that I was going? He goes, first 5 minutes you were doing it wrong. Why didn't you tell me? Because you'd have never seen it for yourself. He said, if you would have done what I told you to do, you would have never learned the lesson. Now I will help you fix it. That's allowing me to fail at it, to experience it, and then step back and to see my failure, because that allowed me to understand what just happened. Now, this is the part that I talk about we're missing today. We're not allowing people to fail. We're not allowing that experience to happen, and so we're missing a block. Now, knowledge is what we're really striving for. We're looking to understand things, because knowledge is based on mixing that data with that experience. Once you have those two, you got to start asking the questions. And it's not finding an answer that's the hard part. It's asking the right question to find the right answer. So the hard part is going through all of those questions just to find this answer. Well, now you've got the answer. That's called knowledge. But now you have just a bunch of dots, rocks. Each one of those rocks is a bit of knowledge. Great. You're going to be really good at trivia. I mean, I'm full of useless knowledge. But I talked about getting to wisdom. I've got all of my blocks. I got the data, the information. I've got the experience because I failed a lot. Now I've connected that and made dots of knowledge. But what it takes for wisdom is learning how to apply all of those dots and connect them and understand how to use that. And that's when it's called wisdom. And that's why we think the older people are more wise than the younger generations. It's not because their IQs are more. It's not because they're smarter. No, they've seen it. They've actually seen it work and fail and do all of those things that the younger generation hasn't. They've allowed themselves to gain all of that knowledge and be able to piece it together and then apply it. And once you have that correct combination, you can make those things. That's a pillar of wisdom. And each one of you have a uniqueness to that. Wisdom's hard to get. Most lessons in life are extremely hard, but wisdom's the hardest one. And I'm scared that we're going to lose it if we don't allow those building blocks to happen. And I'm not talking about just the younger generations. I'm talking about business too. If you're scared to try something new, and if you're scared to try to fail, then you're never going to get wise about what you're trying to accomplish. Now we look back on wisdom and we see people like this. Da Vinci. That man experienced so much and he did so many things. We look at that like, that man was wise. He was full of wisdom because he allowed himself to go around and fail. Helen Keller and Ann Sullivan. She's from my hometown. We just got through doing a camp based off of this. Helen Keller was an amazing woman. She traveled to work. She couldn't hear, speak, or see, but she learned how to talk by putting fingers here, here, and here, feeling the vibration, feeling the breath coming out. She learned to read and write. Those are amazing traits. She saw the world differently than everybody probably in this room because she didn't see it, but she knew it. But though she was great, it took a great person to bring it out in her. That's called Ann Sullivan because she believed in it. She would not let Helen Keller be spoiled. She made sure she failed at every single thing she did where she would learn it. She didn't want her to be failure of life. She wanted her to be wise about life. We see Buddhist monks, religious leaders being wise in different ways. We look at teachers, storytellers, people that inspire you to be wise because they've got something to give you. But so do bartenders. And think about how many people they talk to. They have to understand the human psyche to do their job. Because think of how many times they've had to hear about problems. Some guy, some lady sitting at the bar. Then they see all the terrible pickup lines. There's wisdom in that job. How about the doorman? It's his job to know people. It's his job to understand how to make someone feel special. There's wisdom in that. How about mothers, fathers? Though we don't listen to them much, not until you get older, but they're trying to set you up to surpass them. They want to give you something they never had. That's the hard part, because they want to shelter you. And you all know how that works. But you've got to be pushed out sometimes. Those are obvious people. How about the janitor at your high school? Most people don't even see this person. They're just someone that's there. Lesson I give students going into the real world, and if you're going into the real world, please take this down. Get to know your security guards, the custodians, the doormen, because no one else speaks to them, but they know everything that goes on in the office. They are your connection to everything that goes on. And all they want to be treated as someone with respect. I had a lady that worked at SCAD. She's from Central America. She was raising her great-grandchildren. She was custodian in our building. I asked her to come teach one of my classes one day. She said, "Oh, no." I'm like, "Why not?" She goes, "What am I going to tell them? My English is terrible." I said, "So is mine." She said, "What would I teach these kids? What would you not teach these kids? You have a life that none of these kids will probably ever get close to. They're never probably going to struggle as hard as you. They're probably not going to raise 3-4 generations in a country that you're not even from, that you can't even communicate well. Scared her to death. But like I said, you are unique. You have something to give. So did she. And then never underestimate someone ever underestimate someone for what they might know. Because you don't know what side of the tracks you're going to end up on. You have no clue what the end of your life's going to look like. You might have it projected. You might have tons of money in a bank account. That doesn't mean anything because you have no clue what's coming. My father made sure that I would walk up to this man and greet him with the same respect as I would anybody else because he said, son, you have no idea what side of the tracks you will end up on. I moved to Auburn University. There's a huge oak tree on the backside of Auburn when I first got there. Had 2 couches. Old men just sit out there all day long just to talk. I'm this young little kid coming in with a convertible Mustang. I'll pull right in. No one ever stops. I jump out. First thing I do, boom, 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 shaking everybody's hand. My name is Owen Foster. I'm not from here. I want to know everything that you know. And they were just like, what? I'm like, you know everything that's went on for multiple generations of this town. Why am I going to go sit there and ask one of the other students? I'm getting it from the horse's mouth. I would go there every weekend and talk with them. I become friends. I even had my own personal chair right under the tree because they were the wisest people I could find in that town. And I talk about age, but there's wisdom in children. That girl right there might experience more of life than you will ever. So why are you underestimating her? She might have already went through the process to find wisdom. And that's what we're looking for, right? So for me, and what we're trying to do, me and my partners, we're trying to make a platform to where we can pass it on. I look at my students and I want them to surpass me, every single one of them. I'm giving them something I never had. I'm giving them me as a platform to jump from. And I go about that with every step of my life. I have a nephew, he's 19 years old now, way bigger than I am. He was 12 years old, and I'm the uncle that doesn't live at home. And I went up to him and I was extremely hard on him. He had to make straight A's. He had to do these. And every time I would come in, I would just harp on him because I loved him. One day he come to me and said, Uncle, you're never satisfied with anything that I do. Well, for an uncle, hearing your little nephew say that when he's 12 just rips your heart out. So I sat him down. I've always talked to him as an adult. I said, John Daniel, there's not one thing in life that you've done that I'm not proud of. But it's my job as your uncle to make you the greatest man my family has ever made. And if you're not, I failed you. So I will be hard on you, but I will give you every ounce that I have in me to make you that person. So I'm in my 40s. I don't classify myself as a wise man yet. I think I have some wisdom, but I will forever be searching for it. But I at least know the steps in which it's going to take, and it doesn't happen easy. And hopefully when I'm through giving and I'm exhausted, I've done everything I can do to pass on to everyone else, that's the day I want to be done. So I'm going to leave this as my closing statement to everyone in here. I talk about wisdom being very hard to gain. I talk about it's uniquely yours when you gain it. But here's the challenge. It's not yours to keep. I challenge you to pass that wisdom on to someone else. Make the next generations greater than you. Make the people around you better. Don't hold your knowledge. Don't think that you're the only one that needs it, because that's a lie. Be that person that uplifts everyone around you. And if you positively change the people around you, you can make a positive change and impact on the rest of the world. Thank you.